everybody. Thanks for joining us. And today's mystery, Aspen and I were going over songs, and one of them I had on the list of songs that I know said the Thankfulness song, and I can't for the life of me remember what it is. And also, I saw one...
Thankful for... That's the cartoon song.
Cartoons.
VeggieTales.
Oh, that's VeggieTales.
Yes,
Thank God
yes.
for this day.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that is it.
Yes.
Mommy knew it all along.
That's amazing. I never do
Listen,
that,
that.
ever.
Well, you have a second opportunity then. Another one said the Salad Song. Have you ever heard of the Salad Song?
I have.
And we want to know why it's called the Salad. It's the one when the rolls fall up yonder.
Let us share. Let us come together.
So that's why it's salad.
Yeah,
the
lettuce and the things like that.
I couldn't remember all these things I'm losing.
I think so. Anyways, it has things like that, lettuce and
stuff in it.
yeah.
And that's what
turnip maybe, and
that's what Aspen was asking, and I couldn't remember.
I haven't heard it very often
It's
or
been
in
a
a
long
long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So yeah, that was kind of anyway. Aspen is reacting badly because she didn't turn the mics on.
No, I turned the mics on. They could hear you.
Oh yeah, they just couldn't see us.
New problem. but now they can.
Starting over. Thanks everyone for joining us.
It's a podcast. That's what it is.
Aspen is our person in charge of technicality things. She's homeschooled, so. Anyway.
She was just telling us how uncool homeschoolers are.
She was.
And unfun.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
Because homeschoolers are so much fun and cool.
Yeah, we live with one and...
She's fine.
Yeah.
You know, most of the time. She doesn't cause trouble. Anyway, today we're talking about skinny dipping, aren't we?
Yeah.
Skinny dipping. Have you been skinny dipping? Have I been skinny dipping? No, actually. Well, my dad threw me in the lake once, and all I had on was my pajamas.
Your pajamas? What did you do that for?
Or was it? No. It was my I had a suit on.
Oh, well, that's not skinny dipping.
I had a suit on because it was Sabbath, and we were being slow. That's what it was. And everyone was kind of sleeping in, and Dad started throwing everybody into the lake. We used to live on Lake Murray, Columbia, South Carolina. And, you know, it was, I guess, all in good fun. He got Beth, threw her in. He got Craig, threw him in. I hid in my closet. And I put on my
I don't call
suit.
that fun then.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had a
hiding
closet, then it probably wasn't fun.
That fun. I didn't want to get thrown in the lake. I remember that. But I did. I put on my suit because it was, you know, an expensive suit. And I thought he found me. He was like, I said, I've got my suit on. And he threw me in anyway.
Well, but your mother wasn't very happy.
Mom was not happy. Mom was not happy at all. She didn't mind Craig and Beth, but throwing me in with and it was like I had on the pants, jacket, tie, shirt, everything. Hid in the closet, put on my suit, thought I was smart, got thrown in anyway. I wonder if Naaman had his suit on when he got thrown into the river.
But he didn't get thrown into the river.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, so yes, we're talking about Naaman. Naaman is our topic for today. Aspen wants my computer, I'm sure, to check out, to make sure she's not making any more mistakes. So tell us, Miranda, what are we doing with Naaman?
What are you doing with Naaman? We're talking about him and making analogies.
We are making Naaman an allegory.
Yes.
So here's the story. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Jump in if I miss something.
Okay.
Naaman was... I forget, a Hittite. Oh, what was he? He was,
I didn't know we were talking about that part.
I didn't either.
It started with an A.
He was Aramaic, Armenian,
something.
Amalekite. I don't know.
Why don't we skip that part and make like we know what we're talking
yes.
about?
Naaman was part of the people outside of Judea and the Israelites. So anyway, he was high up in the military. He was, one of these guys who, you respected because he was the in-charge dude. And yes, Aspen has a...
He was an Aramean.
Aramean. I was close. Thank you. I said Armenian. I was close. Aramean. We just talked about the Arameans, didn't we? Last week. Remember, I was making fun of the Armenian, and you said it was Aramean.
Right.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. So he was high up in the, leadership roles, but he came down with leprosy. And in those days, leprosy was the, shun, everybody run away kind of disease.
Because it was incurable.
Yeah.
And if you caught
contagious.
it, you wouldn't want to catch that, obviously, because,
Yeah. And interestingly enough, leprosy is still a thing today.
Yeah, it is. But thank goodness these days there is a cure for it. Since at least when did they come up with the cure?
Oh, it wasn't so long ago. I want to say it was like in the 50s or 60s. It wasn't.
I thought something, yeah.
Pretty recent that they can cure it.
Yeah.
But some people still get it, and some people are in third world countries and are so poor and so far out they don't get treatment, and they still die from leprosy when they don't have to.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I mean, like
Wow.
in some really poor countries where there's these villages out in the middle of nowhere and they just don't get to them in time.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Anyway, so he got leprosy, and this is a death sentence. And lo and behold, someone in his household had an answer.
Right. The little servant girl who had been captured from Judea, actually, and she told her, Naaman's wife, that there was a prophet in her country who could heal Naaman.
Yep. How old do you think that girl was?
Well, I mean, I don't know, but when you're a little kid and they tell you stories, you presume she's about 7 or 8 or 10 maybe.
In the pictures, that's kind of how they, who knows, but probably, somewhere around there. But if you think about it, and this part of the story, what kind of childhood must she have had to be able to tell, to go through being taken and made into a slave and being able to tell them, my God's guy prophet can help you. I mean, even at that age, she was able to, speak up and say, my God can do this.
Right, and that she actually shared the information.
Yeah.
She didn't have to.
Yeah, and if you were taken as a slave, you'd probably go, ha, 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 got what he deserved.
True.
And yet.
But then maybe he didn't. She felt he didn't deserve that. Maybe they were a very nice family.
Yeah. So, of course, I don't care how nice you are.
That's
You
true.
took me as a slave.
It's true, but...
Who knows? Anyway, just what a great story there with the servant girl. I've always thought it would be cool to write a play about her life, just to make up, because she's a key player in this whole... She is the key player, and we don't hardly hear much about her, don't know much about her. Anyway, so she says, if he'll go talk to the prophet can heal him. Then the wife tells Naaman, and then Naaman goes to the king and says, let me go unto this distant land and talk to this heathen prophet so he can heal me. And the king said, blessings on you, go and do it. Mm-hmm. So off he went. And so Naaman goes to Elisha, and he brings with him many mighty men on many mighty horses and chariots and many mighty gifts. And because he's thinking, just like, all the probably common people of the day thought, he said, I'm going to impress him with my, manliness and my position.
If this is a guy who can heal you from an incurable disease, then you would probably think you need to be good enough or have enough for that to happen.
Yes, you probably want to say, I am worthy and deserving of this, and I will pay you handsomely for this.
Yeah, because he's never met anybody else who's been cured of leprosy.
Yeah, nobody.
Yeah.
So here he goes. And then Elisha doesn't even come out to say hi. No note, no welcome basket, no wave from the window. He just sends his servant out.
Yeah, and his servant says, well, all right, I want you to go. Well, first of all, no gifts. They aren't going to accept any payment whatsoever. And he brought a bunch of gold and silver and 10 changes of clothing. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, we don't want any of that, but what you need to do is go dip in the Jordan River 7 times. And he is entirely offended.
Yeah.
Yeah, he actually gets very angry. 2 Kings 5:11 says, he was furious and went away and said, behold, I thought he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of his Lord and wave his hand over the place and cure the leper.
He was thinking it was going to be like Beauty and the Beast, when the Beast changes back into the guy, and he would be, and there would be, and there'd be, dee, and lights and things, and angels singing, and choirs going, woo, and he would be changed. But no, he got none of that. Zero.
Yeah.
Zippo.
Yeah. And basically he's like, well, what's wrong with my clean rivers in my own country? I could just go back there and wash 7 times. Why should I be humiliated here in this foreign country, basically?
Yep.
So
Now you have to understand what the river Jordan looked like. It was a very muddy river. It was like, well, you probably don't know the Ganges in India. I mean, the people get sick just from going in and out of it. It's really bad, and yet they hold it to be the sacred river, and so people go and they have to, according to their religion, they have to go in, they have to bathe so many times a year in the Ganges, and yet it is so sickening polluted. It will, you could like get very sick and die from it, and yet they still do it. So I'm not saying the Jordan was the Ganges, but that might be how Naaman sort of looked at it, because it was a pretty nasty river.
yeah, well, I'm going to presume that maybe he didn't have some of the same way that I would see it. I mean, honestly, if we go to a lake or something like that, and you can't see the bottom of it,
Yeah.
I don't like to get in. There's, there'll be people out there and they're having a good old time, puttering around in the lake or whatever, and I might go in up to my ankles or something.
Yeah.
Even clear lakes. Went into the south once and went to a lake. It was really warm because I wasn't used to that. And I didn't like those little fish that would come up out of nowhere and nibble at your legs and
right,
such.
yeah.
So, yeah. I'm going to presume being a soldier, he was used to, outdoor living. But all the same, he did seem a little picky about his water.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And yet, this is where he was supposed to go.
Right. And so what was it that stood in the way of accepting this free gift? I mean, it was free.
Yeah. And
he was offended by that, basically. His pride did that to him. Now, I want to make the analogy here that it's while leprosy was an incurable physical disease, we all have the incurable disease of sin.
Right.
And
so if we back up in the story here, Naaman had an incurable disease that was going to kill him. We all have the incurable disease of sin that will kill us.
And is free. But sometimes I think we go to Jesus and to God with this stuff, like we try to be good enough.
What's free? You said it's free. What's free?
The gift of salvation is free.
Good, because I was talking about the disease, and you said, and it's free.
The freedom.
Act now today. Get your incurable disease free. But wait, that's not all. If you send in now, Ginsu knives. Yes, so the cure is free. And I think that's what you were talking about. The cure
basically.
is free. Yeah, but I like what you said. I didn't catch that real, but that's true. That would have caused Naaman to think this can't be real. Anyway, he doesn't want money. He doesn't want gifts. He doesn't. It's free. No, this is nothing. Nothing's free. He would have had that mindset that many people have today. Nothing is free.
Yeah, well, he was up there in the military and he had money. I mean, I'm sure it was a lifestyle,
Yeah.
He probably had to work his way up the ladder. We don't know, but, even in Israel and such, people were set at the table at dinner parties according to their rank and such like that.
Everything was how you deserved and earned and everything. And here, he said, oh, well, this is free. And so I don't know if he left in a huff or if he just left. I imagine he left in a huff, but off he goes, and he's not going to...
Yeah, he's not going to go do what actually needs to be done in order to be cured. And we go, why not? But, Jesus cures us from the results of sin as well, but we don't always want to take him up on that. And the part of it is because salvation sets us free from sin. When we're set free from sin, we now do the works of God. And we don't always want to do that. And before you say, yeah, of course, I love God and I do whatever he wants me to, but we really, really look at it. Loving God and loving others the way God asks us to isn't how we want to receive salvation, even though it is a gift. It is a gift where we don't always like the results of it.
So, so we could be saying, well, I was Naaman, no problem. I'd have dove right in 7 times to the Jordan River. I would have done what it... And then the real question is, oh, really? Okay, so God didn't ask you to go to the Jordan River, though, did he? He asked you to do this.
Do something else, much like the priest and the Levite as they walked past the Good Samaritan.
Yes,
now,
that's a good one.
God convicted them to stop and help, but they're like, no, I got better things to do, good things to do, God things to do, and I have not got time to do this. And besides that, it's dangerous. And I don't doubt that it was. I remember it was before the days of cell phones, and honestly, it probably is good 25, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I think it happened, because I was living in Alaska. And I knew this guy who'd come down to the lower 48, and he was in Seattle, was driving down
those of you who don't know, Alaskans don't really think they're part of the country. There's Alaska, and then there's the lower 48. And they always say it with this tone of the lower 48. Those sad, sad people who live in the lower 48. We've worked on this. We're getting better.
Okay.
What about Hawaii?
The Hawaiians are Hawaiian. They're just like, whatever, you guys do it. We'll surf, okay? Hang loose, dude. That's all. They eat mangoes and surf. It's a way of life, so.
Okay, so this guy was in Seattle taking his vacation, and he's driving on the freeway, and he sees this woman standing outside her pickup truck, hood is up and such. So being a nice kind of guy, he decides, and knowing a bit about cars, he stops and he's going to help her out. So
this is a true story now.
Yeah, true story.
True story.
So he pulls over behind her, and he's there looking under the hood, seeing what might be wrong. And all of a sudden, 2 guys jump out of the ditch, and they try to slam the hood down on top of him. Yeah. And he manages to get away. He wasn't a particularly big guy, but he managed to get away and get in his own vehicle and drive off. But and so that was dangerous. You could see the same where the priest and the Levite would have probably heard stories like that and got, no, too dangerous, got this other work to do. Why dirty up my hands with something like that?
Yeah.
So.
Kind of another story that goes along with Naaman is the rich young ruler. Because Naaman had a disease, and God gave him instruction on what he needed to do to take care of the disease. And it wasn't the disease God was after. It was his heart he was after. Here was an opportunity not just to heal Naaman physically, but to also do some spiritual healing as well. Because there was nothing special about the Jordan River. The Jordan River wasn't special. It was dirty. But God knew how Naaman would feel about that. He also knew how Naaman would feel about Elisha not going out to meet him, and Elisha not taking any of his gifts. And he puts all that into the equation, telling Elisha, don't even go outside, take nothing from him, tell him to go 7 times in the Jordan River, and he'll be clean. And it was attacking his pride, not leprosy, which the rich young ruler was the same thing. He had all this stuff, and Jesus said, he attacked what was holding him back. Go get rid of everything. Go sell everything, because it's your stuff that's giving you your spiritual blockage, not your actions.
Right. And unless we think this doesn't apply to our own real everyday lives now.
Thank goodness we're not like them.
Right. Of course, Brett's worked as a pastor before, and sometimes I think you see things that maybe the everyday congregation doesn't. But remember one guy in particular who would say to Brett, this one guy in the church he did not like at all. He's like, oh, yeah, God has to love him, but I don't.
Yeah.
And that...
God can love him, doesn't mean I have to.
Yeah, that is, if he wants to be cured of the incurable sin, of the incurable disease of sin in our lives, then we have to be willing to love who God puts in our path. We
Yeah.
have to be willing to forgive them, because the thing is, we say we don't have to love them because of how they treated us.
Yeah.
I think we all can have stories like that, is how somebody treated us, so we don't have to love them because of that. But Jesus says to love everyone, and be forgiving to everyone. And so, lest we think it doesn't happen to us,
It
or
does.
in today's world, it does.
It just happens to us the same way it happened to Naaman and the rich young ruler. It's in those blind spots we
Yeah,
have. God's not going to give us something that, isn't going to attack the thing that he wants to work on in our lives. He's going to give us that. And yeah, it's harder for us to see. We can easily see Naaman. We can easily see the rich young ruler. Same thing, but in our life, it's going to be this blind spot. Which as a side note, I still don't know why we can put a man on the moon, but we can't create a mirror that I can have no blind spots on the left side of my car. Just a little personal thing there, but yeah. Anyway, tell us, Miranda, where are we now in our presentation?
This is what I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so this basically is about relationship with Jesus. And Naaman, clearly, he didn't know anything about a relationship with Jesus. But I'll bet you anything, once he went through that experience, he learned something.
Yeah.
It doesn't say what he learned, but I don't doubt that he learned something from that. And for starters, he received the information from a little slave girl in his house, who was not worth too much of anything. I mean, she didn't have any status at all. She was just a kid as a slave in his household who received the information from her. And
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we all tell stories, and we love to tell stories, especially things that happen to us that are amazing. If Naaman went back to his, home country and told this story, if he was honest, then there were going to be people who were going to be like, ooh, someone's doing a little too much of this, because no one's going to believe that. And yet, think about the miraculous parts of the story. You'd have to say, well, the slave girl I got from Israel. And of course, Israel's God was well known. I mean, this is another thing in the Old Testament that today, let's say, Christian America is very well aware of, say, Muhammad and Muslim, even though, that really started in the Middle East. But we're still very well aware of it, and we know a lot about it. Same thing back then, that they would have been very well aware of stories of what the God of Israel had done in the past. And so when he said the little girl from Israel told us her God, the prophet of their God, could heal him, I mean, people would have had some awareness of, ooh, that God, okay, what's he up to now? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I wonder if he didn't have a few visions of self-grandeur on the way to the prophet, wondering what great thing he would ask him to do, is that he could go back and say, well, he healed me because I gave him all this money, all this silver, all this gold, 10 changes of clothing, and he asked me to slay the fire-breathing dragon in the third dimension somewhere. And I mean,
Or do 1,000 push-ups on the spot.
Or something, something that made him
Something
sound like
man-made.
And yet now he has to go home and say, he did nothing for
Yeah,
it.
I'd be like,
Absolutely
okay, so, and what,
Yeah.
I didn't give him anything.
Yeah, did you talk to the prophet? What was he like?
Didn't actually see him.
Yeah,
He didn't even come out and say hi, no. See him through the window? No, not so much.
yeah.
His servant came out and talked to me. His servant. And then what? And you had to go and tell him, like, well, take my shirt off and go into the Jordan River 7 times, and poof. And people just wouldn't believe it. They're like, you didn't do anything. You didn't give him anything. He didn't even come out and talk to you.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we treat our cure, if you will, of our sin much the same way. I think we try to do good works. We may not really see it that way. I know I didn't used to see it that way, but over time, God has kind of adjusted my vision, and we say, no, I'm not doing the good works. I know that I can't be saved by good works. We know that. And yet there's some underlying pushing of us in that direction. Honest to goodness, I went to a little tiny church in North Dakota once. It was a country church. And in the Sabbath school, you were supposed to list all these good deeds you had done throughout the week. And the one lady in particular, she's like, I gave away 36 pieces of clothing at Dorcas Center.
Yeah.
And I gave this much food to such and such organization. And I did this and I did that. And she went on and on with this list of things, good works that she had done. I actually saw that at another place too.
Yeah.
A listing of good works that people had done during the week.
I've seen
And
that.
so if we think that does not apply to people today, it does. And that while we may think our church has gotten rid of that sort of thing, I think that within our own hearts, there is still somewhat, at least I know that's how it's worked for me, even though we know we are not saved by works. Take a really good close look at that. And just take a look at your spiritual poverty, which we are to mourn. Matthew 5 verse 4, we are to mourn our spiritual poverty. If you think that your spiritual poverty is not as bad as someone else's, then we need to take a look at how many good works we think that we are doing in order to put that and change our spiritual poverty. Our spiritual poverty, everybody's spiritual poverty is the same. Whether you know God, whether you don't know God, whether you're an atheist, whatever kind of sin or good life you've led, all our spiritual poverty is the same. There is no going to church enough, reading our Bible enough, or anything like that to change that. This is where the relationship with Jesus comes in. And now He's the one, He creates good works over here in our life that's entirely different and separate from our spiritual poverty, which we will never be able to do anything about. And so it's like rather than now doing good works, for the sake of we're going to be good for Jesus, right? And we're going to be good for Jesus, got to do the right thing and can't do this, got to do that kind of thing. That's one way of living, okay? And I don't think Jesus despises that in particular. It's all a journey. You know, if that's where you're at right now, that's not a bad place to be in particular, because Jesus will continue in your relationship with Him. But there is a big difference between that and being like Joseph and saying, how can I do this great sin against you? And I think that is the kind of love relationship that Jesus wants to be in with us, where we, when presented with temptation, is saying, no, I can't do it, won't do it, gotta hold on, not gonna do it, Jesus help me. You know, why not just be to that point where you love Jesus so much, you're focused on Him, and you say, how could I do this terrible, horrible sin against Him? Instead of we generally trying to justify sin as to why we shouldn't be able to keep it. Yeah, so it's a little bit like, say, couples, for example, who have come to Brett as a pastor, you know, and they want some counseling. Well,
when I say, no, it's over. Run now. That's not how
there's times when
that's how she does.
When both the couples seem to be there and they stand up for their rightness.
Yes.
And
I am justified in doing this because she did this to me. No, you did this. Yeah.
Yes, and so they, the pastor, of course, or the counselor that they might be seeing, tries to help them find a middle ground. And they suggest to her, maybe you should do this. Let's meet him in the middle right here. And they say to him, maybe you should do this and meet her in the middle. Now, neither of them are getting exactly what they want, but they would be working on their relationship. But if they go into it grudgingly like that, it's not really going to last permanently. The only way a relationship like that is going to end up being permanent is if they go into it with hearts that are willing to forgive the past and to give not just halfway, but both give 100% of in a loving manner, rather than, well, and okay, the problem with couples going and the pastor or counselor says, okay, you need to give halfway here and you need to give halfway there, they end up going to their friends and saying, well, the counselor said he's supposed to do that, and you know what he did? He did this horrible thing, or didn't do it, or who knows what, and he says the same thing about her, and you know, it's no wonder things don't work, because it's you know, and so our relationship with Jesus shouldn't be about works. like the kind of works that we do because they're good, not because we love him. The person who gives halfway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The counselor or the pastor has asked the married couple to go halfway.
Right.
And that's a good work.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Those are good works. Mm-hmm. But it's not the same as doing those works by love rather than
right.
just actions and no real love behind it.
It would have been interesting to know what Naaman was like after the fact, because he didn't really get a big connection with God, but he got some connection with God, and he got some experience with God. And if you think about it, Naaman's mind and Naaman's, perception, what did Naaman actually do for healing?
Nothing.
He went to God. That was it. He went to God, and God said, okay, do this. And he begrudgingly did this. So when he went to God,
that's true.
He went, oh, I can, and he went in great spirit. And then when he left God, from Elisha's house, he was very upset and angry. And friends helped him go, buddy, you could die here. You're going to die. All right. So that's given. You're going to die. But this guy says, in the river 7 times. I mean, is that any really big thing? Mm-hmm. Really? And
right.
And he goes and he does 7 times.
Yeah.
And the 7 times had nothing to do with it. The Jordan had nothing to do with it. It was the overcoming the pride. Mm-hmm. And then I wondered, because he had to come up out of that thinking, he's a smart guy. And he probably was thinking, this had nothing to do with the water. I had to submit. I had to, because his process was, I had to let go of my pride and do this. And in his heart, probably knew that's what the healing was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is all a journey. It is a journey like that. I don't know how many times that I feel like God has dragged me kicking and screaming.
Into the river,
yeah. Into the river. And I don't want to, but I'm like, all right, I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going already. I'm going. And once you come up out of the water, it's entirely different. You're like, wow, look what God did. Look what God did. Sets you free from unforgiveness and the inability to love someone and things like that.
Yeah. And Ellen White actually talks about Naaman and says he was just healed. His skin was renewed like that of a newborn. It was the Ponce de Leon fountain of youth. He was restored to original awesome health, not just healed. It's like, oh, I don't have any more leprosy, but darn those sunspots, I still have the wrinkles. No, he was, and that had to have an effect on him too.
Yeah, I wonder if his wife thought, maybe I'll go dip in the Jordan 7 times.
If this happened today, people would be like, where's the river? And they would all be about the river.
Yeah, but that's a problem. Like we go into it then with dipping into the water 7 times, but that's not it. It's the power of God that does it.
Yeah. That's where
and
I've
so
seen
why
Jesus
are we
toast,
doing it?
Yeah, it's like Anyway, so I thought Naaman was a great, topic because it's, one, someone far removed from God. 2, the power of the witness of this child who shared what she knew, and 3, how God took Naaman, where he was, and dealt with him in the place that he was at. And gave him exactly what he needed to do emotionally and spiritually. Mm-hmm. And how Naaman's, motivations were not pure. He was just like you were, God drags us into the river or whatever he's called us to, kicking and screaming. But despite our impure motives, he did it, we do it, and it comes out, and he still works with us, and he works through us. And it changes us like it changed Naaman, because God knows if we'll just get through this, just keep going, just a little more, and then we're transformed by the experience. And that's what changes us and brings us closer. And then we're like, yes, God, I know, you were right again. I don't know why I don't learn. And we continue on in life.
Yeah.
How many times is that like, oh, right, I should know this by now, but... We have a
saying, which just goes to prove that our spiritual poverty is vast. And there is nothing we can ever do to change that.
Yes.
Ever.
If you think it's Gilligan's Island, it's not. It's bigger than that. It's
and if you think yours isn't as big as somebody else's, it's probably bigger.
There's a Jordan River we have for you.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a fun topic. So, anyway, hope you have had a great Sabbath. We are going to be talking about Gideon next Sabbath.
Probably Gideon. Yeah, we had Gideon already pretty much for this week, and then all of a sudden Naaman crossed.
Naaman came up.
And I was like, woohoo, let's go with Naaman.
Let's go with Naaman. That was good. Probably after that it'll be something about Cain, because we're going to be teaching Sabbath school about Cain, so double dip.
Yep.
But anyway, thanks for joining us. Hope you have a